Okay, thank you so much, Sir Bayu. So let me just um, share our screen. Okay, so can you see it from your end?
Yes.
Okay, so yes, good afternoon from our end. Good morning, good afternoon to everyone. And yes, our presentation is all about collaborative and smart governance best practices from CityNet experience. I think we were kind of like debating from the first presentation because here we're looking at collaboration more from a network point of view, since we'll be discussing more from the institutional level, what we do here in Secretariat. Um, there are two major discussions in our presentation. One is we will first introduce CityNet as a city network for Asia Pacific and what we do and how we do our activities in terms of services to our members. And second part, it's more on like very specific mechanism on how we how we promote collaboration in our work with our members, because in essence, we rely on our members' participation. The success of the network heavily depends on how our members are charting their own, are contributing to the success of the network. So that's how we see it. So again, let me just briefly introduce to you CityNet for those who don't know our organization. We are a regional city network. We're currently based in Seoul, Republic of Korea. And then we revolve around these mission in terms of reaching our vision. So we want to forge the largest network of urban stakeholders across the Asia Pacific. Our members are comprised of city leaders, city governments. We have different urban stakeholders as our members as well. And then we also have members from private sector. And then we want to promote the exchange and knowledge of best practices. And then we advance urban issues on the global sustainability agenda. And then we combat global climate change, promote disaster resilience. And then we provide solutions for a rapidly changing urban landscape. So here is the geographical distribution of our members. So currently we have 173, and 110 of them are city members, full members, and 58 members are associates. When we say associates, these are like NGOs, development partners, national government organizations, and then we have also 5 corporate members. By this we mean private sector members in our network. And let me just share you a short animated video on our different capacity building approaches, because it somehow this video capsulizes everything we do as far as capacity building is concerned. Capacity building is one of our main critical program to our members. It's also one of the benefits. So let me just share my screen and let me just play the video.
CityNet, as the network of cities, has grown to become the largest association of urban stakeholders who are committed to sustainable development in the Asia-Pacific region. At the heart of CityNet's work is its capacity building program. Capacity building, according to the United Nations, is the process of developing and strengthening the skills and abilities that organizations and their people need to survive and thrive in the fast-changing world. CityNet's capacity building program is peer-based by design. We focus on sharing knowledge, learning lessons, and generating insights from the urban practices on the ground. We foster relationships with the participants and engage them even after training. CityNet conducts capacity building activities anchored on different areas of interest of its members. Urban mobility. We help cities make their public transport more efficient as it is key to improving local economy. Climate change. CityNet helps cities reduce emission and promote low carbon to manage climate change impacts. Disaster resilience. CityNet trains city managers and provides them the tools to manage disaster risks. Smart city development. CityNet helps cities apply data and technology to build livable and sustainable communities. Housing. CityNet provides platform for cities to share knowledge and access different housing solutions. And sustainable development goals. CityNet manages the Urban SDG Knowledge Platform website, where it showcases SDG-inspired best practices of our members. Anchored on these themes, CityNet organizes workshops and trainings, site visits program, and city-to-city exchanges. In all these activities, we introduce the SDG Localization Toolkit and SDG Navigator to help participants analyze and replicate different urban solutions with greater chance of success. Whether online or offline, CityNet has conducted per year an average of 14 capacity building activities to about 1,000 participants in the last 4 years. To partner with us and learn more, visit the CityNet website. CityNet is the regional network for cities in the Asia Pacific committed to sustainable development in the Asia Pacific region.
Okay, so that's a more or less a general introduction on our program. And go back to my screen.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
That will not work. Got it. Okay.
So in this slide, it shows you some of our capacity building activities, just to concretize on our previous animated video. So this is the sets of capacity building activities that we did last year. So you can see it's varied, it's tailor-made, and it involves different partnerships from our members. So we can actually cover as many different urban topics. I'm thinking disaster risk reduction, smart city development, smart waste management, training on housing policy, and it can even be on low carbon mobility for a specific sets of cities that specifically request from us to deliver and facilitate training for them. So partnership is important, collaboration is important, because from the Secretariat, we're not really experts in terms of these fields. We're more of a facilitator. We're more of like giving them the platform for our members and experts to meet. So we look at it as our strength. And so that's how we do it as we go along in terms of our programming. And these are some of our photos. Yes, hopefully as early as next year, we can already do an in-person city visits to some of our members across the region. Because not because of pandemic, we zeroed in on online, but definitely next year, if we have the opportunity, it's going to be hybrid at the least. And we look forward to seeing our members in terms of doing the trainings with them. And this slide is, we're looking on a very specific mechanism and how we promote collaboration in terms of like different urban themes, and we're seeing smart city development. And this time, here in CityNet, it is a very pronounced way, in very pronounced theme, because that's also the request of our members. So here in CityNet, we have this cluster system. Cluster system is a set of subset of our members who work in a very specific program for a particular theme, and this time it's about climate change. And then here, climate change cluster, we have members spanning some of the most vulnerable cities to climate extremes. And this particular cluster develops activities and promotes effective local climate actions. And then currently we have cluster lead, Jakarta's capital city government, that leads this initiative in the cluster. And we have our co-lead, Human and Environmentally Progressive Organization in Sri Lanka, who supports Jakarta capital city to initiate and develop different activities for the cluster. So usually the main I say the framework that we've been working as far as this climate change cluster is concerned is we anchor on Paris Agreement and the role of cities in contributing to the NDC, nationally determined contribution, as far as climate change action is concerned. But since we know cities are one of the biggest contributors to carbon emission, so we work also in terms of reducing the impacts. So basically, they work around capacity development in terms of GHG emissions inventory, looking specifically on buildings and transportation, and then promoting low carbon emission and promoting nature-based solutions. So this one is also a very specific activity contribution that we have for members in terms of promoting climate actions in the region. We do this every year, climate leadership program. It's already in our 6th edition. We aim to add value to the leadership capacities of climate change practitioners in the Asia Pacific, with the end view of helping them transform their communities while addressing impacts of climate change. So this activity also presents an opportunity for peer-based exchange of best practices for both innovative national and local climate actions. The design of this is really more on, we heavily put premium on knowledge exchanges, highlighting collaboration, participation, accountability in terms of delivering local climate actions. And of course, there's successful replication, successful programs. So these are really our, when we try to contextualize the design of this activity, we put it as a premium. So it's not really too much of a technical, very hardcore in terms of like measuring GHG, but more on the sharing on the process, on the success factors, on the failures as well, so that the members can appreciate it and can bring it in once they go back to their own city governments and organizations. And then yes, our ambition on climate action is Asian Pacific region. I mentioned this, that one of our strengths really is we pool our members and experts in the field and provide them a long-standing platform for exchange and sustainable cooperation. We focus more on helping our members to demonstrate models and test their feasibility in the long run, with the greater chance of success of replication to other members. And then we also advocate among our urban members, urban local authorities and stakeholders to secure local policies, programs, budget in relation to local climate action. So that's how we promote collaboration within our network. And then there is this very specific mechanism on how we promote further collaboration and governance. And this one, my colleague Chris will be presenting to you the details on this Urban SDG Knowledge Plan. Chris?
Right. Thank you, Paulie. That was actually a really, really good introduction, I thought, to kind of the way that we think about governance at CityNet. It really is a collaboration that we try to encourage between all of our members. And one of the biggest goals we have is to really select the best practices that our members are doing, our member cities are doing, zero in on them, really analyze them. And then what we want to do is promote learning from peer to peer. You can see in the blue part down here, that's sort of the ultimate goal of this platform, is to replicate best practices from one city to another. That's really our goal. Anytime that cities are replicating things from other cities and learning from them, we feel like we've done our job in terms of smart governance. So I think a lot of times people think of smart governance, they think of technology. And obviously this website is an example of technology. We use some tools that are on an online platform that are, you know, pretty easy to do. But the other idea of smart governance is really just many people working together to replicate best practices, connecting people. There's smartness in that idea of governance between different cities and between different countries in our network. So this platform does both of those two things. The platform web link here, if you want to check it out, is urbansdgplatform.org. I'm going to go back and forth between my PPT and the platform to show you the different features. But I'm going to start with PPT right now. So when the Urban SDG Knowledge Platform was built, it was 5 years ago at our previous CityNet Congress, which is in Colombo, Sri Lanka. And the main idea of the platform was to create a city-fed policy repository. So we wanted to support the cities in our network to submit different policies, practices, projects, best practices to a database so that people from other cities could visit it and learn from the best practices. So this database is supposed to promote knowledge dissemination among our network, cooperation between members, sharing new experiences, and like I said, replication is very important. So our case study database example here, there are some various incentives to upload a case. This is kind of the most difficult thing when you develop tools or make a platform like this. I think like some of the participants were talking about is how do you make sure that people use them? And that's a difficult thing because you need incentives, but also at the same time, you need to create a culture where people are willing to collaboratively govern, right? If we're going to go into the city 4.0, as the previous professor was talking about, basically it's a shared responsibility, right? So it's not just the government taking all the responsibility to create the city, it's collaboration. So the citizens also need to be empowered or enabled to rise to the same level as the government, to be a peer with them and to work collaboratively. And this is sort of where we're trying to go next. Obviously, this tool, this platform has been developed for city officials in mind, but also common citizens can make use of it too. So basically the incentives to upload are a chance to collaborate with different cities, city to city cooperation. This platform is actually a three-party program or project. It's CityNet, it's also the City of Seoul, and then it's also UNESCAP. So that's why it's sort of an official SDGs database, as you'll see soon. So one incentive to upload a case is also you can get official UN recognition for your case. You can get official evidence that you've been localizing or implementing specific SDGs in your city. So that's a nice incentive. Another incentive is that the cases that we have in our database are used in CityNet workshops. So like today, we'll use some cases as an example in this workshop, so you can see how this is a way for your city to promote its best practices in our workshops. And it's also a way for our participants to take a look at the best practices and try to localize them in their city. And this year we had an SDG Awards program where it was a really good incentive for our members to upload awards upload case studies in the hope of winning an award at our Congress in a few weeks. So for all of you out there, if you're a CityNet member, you're welcome to upload a case study. And even if you're not a CityNet member, you can upload a case study as well. So I'm going to jump out here really quickly and just go into the platform and share that one with you. All right, just a second. Okay. So now I'm sharing this, the Urban SDG Knowledge Platform. This is how it looks on the internet. So the front page will always have some featured case study. In this case, this is the case study that was designed by SCAP, which is our, our primary partner for this website. If you go into the case study database, it's one of the main tabs at the top. After a bit of time, you'll see we have over 400 different case studies that have been uploaded since this website began in 2017. So that's a pretty good showing at this point, that we have plenty of best practices for you to look at. It can be a little bit overwhelming, so the best thing to do when you're looking for something is to go to this filter bar. And if you click this filter bar, you can get some information to filter the case studies. So you can filter it by specific SDGs. If your city wants to do some programs in education, for example, you can click number 4. If your city wants to do some climate relevant projects, which is kind of our topic today, you can click this one and we'll do that. And once you see it's been filled in, you go to hit the X, and then now you have 72 results. All of these case studies have some relationship to SDG 12, which is climate action. So you can look for something that might be relevant to your city. Some interesting ones we have here from Quezon City, the Philippines, is a trash to cashback program where you can pay for goods and services using recyclables and other trash. We have something from Sidoarjo Regency. This is kind of a village that took small scale action to combat climate change, like some urban farming and other resilience measures for what local people can do to on a small scale to combat climate change. There's another plastic focused one from Bogor, which is quite interesting. It's a really well marketed case study. I can click into it and show you a little bit. Even though it's a government initiative, you have to think about how you're going to market your project or your application in this case to be attractive for citizens to want to use it. So at the top of all of our case studies, you can see a small summary. When it was implemented, if it's finished or not, or if it's still ongoing. And then the really important or unique thing here is also the SDGs. You can see that this case study called Botak from Bogor, it has a goal 11, sustainable cities and communities, goal 12, responsible consumption and production, and then goal 13, climate action. All of them are somewhat localized in this case. And you can see what I talked about branding, right? This city, they kind of use almost like a movie poster type of thing to advertise their new initiative in the city. And I think the mayor here got quite involved on a personal level. So every case study needs to have some kind of a background or challenges that your city was facing to give good background and understanding of why you decided to do this type of practice. And it's helpful also to show what the goals or objectives were for implementing this practice. You can see this one has some different types of areas to tackle the plastic problem in the city. And then the next part of every case study you need to have is your actions and implementation. So these are kind of usually a step-by-step way to implement your best practice in your city. It's really important for this part to be very clear, because if we're going to be replicating practices from one city to another, you need to know how to do it. So it's really good to provide a step-by-step basis to do it. So this one talks about reducing plastic in shopping centers, outdoors, and mostly those two areas. After that part, you need to have the outcomes and impacts. It's really helpful to have some positive impact shown here, whether it's winning some awards or some statistics for how you were able to clean up the city or work with certain people. If you don't have this section, then other cities are not going to be incentivized to copy your project. And the last part that's really important is we actually have an entire section on replicability. So we ask you, when you submit a case, to write at least a little bit about how would you recommend other cities to replicate this in their city. Maybe you could talk about cities that are close to you. If this is coming from Indonesia, you can talk about how other Indonesian cities can easily do it. Or you can talk about how cities in other parts of Asia Pacific can maybe adapt this to replicate it there. And this also has a nice video about it, but that's just one example of the case study. And at the bottom as well, this one was included. So, you can actually get in touch with the implementer of the case or the government division of the case. So this case study, as you can see, is actually not very long. There's a lot of pictures, and it's kind of overall, it's kind of a summary. So we're not trying to overburden you to read this. It's more of like an introduction to learn about a practice. And then what we're really hoping to do moving forward, and what we have here, we have a PDF upload feature where if you want to learn a lot more about this best practice or case study, you can download a PDF and read a lot of documents about it if you're really interested in replicating it. However, we don't want to overburden common readers. And the next thing to do is, if this information for contact is at the bottom, you're welcome, especially if you're a CityNet member, you're welcome to reach out directly to the case implementer or the department so that you can actually start the process of more in-depth peer-to-peer discussions and start the replication process between cities. Sometimes this information will not be available because of privacy reasons, but if you contact us, the Secretariat, we will do our best to connect to you if you really want to learn how to implement a case. So that is our case study database. You can also filter. You can also filter by region. So let's say you want to learn. Let's say you want to learn something about industry, innovation, and infrastructure, but you don't want to learn from Southeast Asia. If you want to learn something from East Asia, you can click the East Asia button as well. And you can even filter it further by certain themes, like transportation or housing, urban planning. Maybe we'll do transportation. And now if we click out, we have 10 results, so it's much more targeted. So here's something from South Korea on a smart safety service to prevent drowsy driving. This is for bus drivers who have to drive medium distance and they have really long shifts. How do you prevent them from becoming drowsy or creating accidents? This is another one from an area near where I live. This is kind of it looks like a bus stop, and it is a bus stop, but it's more than that. It's like a smart shelter where they have temperature control, they have charging stations, they have weather information, they have information about when the buses are coming and going, they have information about the level of pollution, all this kind of things. So you can get really specific in our database by using just this simple filtering system. Okay, so if I undo those, actually doesn't really matter. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing here for a second, and I'm going to go back to my PPT. Okay. So I've just introduced the case study database to you. Now the and this is some more actual statistics on our database if you're interested a little bit more. You can sort of see that we've steadily been growing our case numbers. You can see the most popular SDG targets because our platform is on urban development, sustainable cities and communities is really, really popular. But we also have a lot on industry and climate action is our third most popular. So if you're looking for smart solutions for climate, you can find a lot there. Previously, we had a lot more from Korea initially because this was an initiative from Seoul Metropolitan Government. But recently, over the past few years, we've been getting a lot more cases from Southeast Asia and some from South Asia as well. So our case numbers have been a lot more equitable recently, which is really, really good. And I think it shows not only the engagement of our CityNet members in those regions, but also that cities in Southeast Asia and South Asia are really rising to the challenge of implementing best practices to confront a lot of different urban problems. After that, I'm going to go into two different tools that we have on the same platform actually. So this is where things get a little bit more smart. You know, a database isn't that smart, but these tools are specifically designed to take data to help you make decisions in your city. So the first is the SDG Navigator. So what the SDG Navigator is, this is also kind of a self-assessment tool to evaluate how far your city has come in implementing the SDGs. You know that the SDGs, there's 17 of them. There's a lot of sub-targets. It's very complicated. How do you know if you have the data? How do you know the progress that you've made in your city of implementing these SDGs? Really, you don't, and it's really hard to know where to start. So the SDG Navigator is supposed to help you do that. The SDG Navigator was developed by actually a sustainable urban development professor at a university here in Korea in conjunction with CityNet. So they've broken down the 17 SDGs into 10 tests here. So the 10 tests are broken into, I guess, some themes that are really important for urban development. And you don't really need to take all of these tests if you have a particular interest. So maybe today, if we're looking at climate, urban environment is a really good one for everyone to check out. This test has questions on climate change adaptation your city has been taking. It has questions about greenhouse gas emissions. It has questions on availability of parks for citizens. All those types of things. However, it's really good idea to take as many of these tests as possible because then you'll get a more full picture about where your city has come in terms of all the 17 SDGs. So an example of one of the tests is here. It's on health. This has some questions on what's the local maternal mortality rate? How much do premature mortalities are caused by infectious diseases, such as COVID? What is the local maternal mortality rate, et cetera, et cetera. Most of these tests have about 20-something questions, and you need to really have the data available for the test to give you some good data in response. So I recommend if you take any of these tests listed here, that you team up with the department at your city in charge of, say, climate change or transportation education to get the good statistics so that you can do this without too much difficulty. This is an example of the tests on the page when you have not done any of the tests. You can see the SDG targets here, for each test. And then this is an example of the page when you've actually completed all of the self-assessment tests. You get a nice score out of the total from 0 to sometimes over 200 or 180. And in general, the longer the pink line is, the higher your score is, the more advanced your city is in this topic, urban environment or education, etc. And after you do the 10 tests, you'll also get an interesting readout here, which is this is the progress your city has made in the SDGs based on the tests. So you can see, for example, that this example city has done okay in gender equality. There's a 52% implementation there. And also in reduced inequalities down here, it's also around 50%. But you can see a lot of the SDGs are quite low. So there's a lot of progress to be made. For example, here, peace, justice, and strong institutions, only 13%. Partnerships is only 12. No poverty is only 18. So you can see where you need to improve and where you have your strengths. And then even further, maybe you don't know this, but each SDG also has sub-targets. So a lot of the questions that you're going to be answering in the SDG Navigator are actually targeted for very specific sub-targets here. So you can see in the results page here and here for SDG 1 through 9 and SDG 10 through 17 that you can also get a score for each sub-target. And you can see that the better you're doing, the higher the number and the color is more green. And the worse you're doing is the lower the number and the color is actually more red. So that's like really just clear feedback for how your city is doing. And I think it's kind of an incentive to do better. Nobody wants to see dark red or dark orange numbers for their city's SDG implementation. So this kind of works in a bit to gamify the implementation of the SDGs. The last feature of the SDG Navigator that is really interesting, and it sort of ties everything together, is that if you click on a sub-target, any sub-target, it can be one that you're doing well in, it can be one that you're not doing very well in, like this one. No poverty, target 1.1. If you click on it, it will tell you what the sub-target is, which is by 2030, eradicate extreme poverty for all people everywhere, which is people living on less than $1.25 a day. And what the SDG Navigator will do is it will actually recommend case studies from our database for you to implement in your city. So this sort of leads you back to the database and recommends case studies as a way to encourage you to replicate best practices from one city to another. That's always the overall goal. So I can show you this on the platform because we do have a bit of time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my platform again. And I'm gonna log in. Any of you watching, you can join the platform very easily by clicking join at the top right. All you really need to do is enter your email address and make a password. Enter your name and your city and organization, very helpful. And then you need to sign up. And then after a few hours you'll get approval, and then you can start using these features and save your data. So I'm going to log into one of mine just to show you a little bit. So this is my profile. This is my SDG Navigator test. I have all 10 of them done. I go to results. Like I showed you in the PPT, all my tests have a certain score to show how well I've done. So I'm doing not too well in some areas, but I'm doing okay in urban environment actually, which is kind of good for today. You can see my SDG wheel, where I've gotten progress on. I think life on land is looking really good. Quality education is not looking so good. Climate action, so I guess today's topic is at 40%. So I'm doing decently, but I could always improve. And then these are the test results, the sub-targets. So if you want to look at climate today, climate action target 13.1 and 13.2 were both tested in the SDG Navigator. You can see that some of the sub-targets are not tested because either there's not enough data or there's not enough ways, mechanisms to measure these. But you can see at 13.2, I'm not doing very hot. I only have a 3. So if I click here, It's going to recommend some best practices to help my city improve. So this target is integrate climate change measures into national policies, strategies, and planning. And it's recommending the track the cashback program from Kazan that we looked at. It's recommending a park regeneration program from Dhaka North, and then also from another garden sort of initiative from Turkey, Istanbul. So we'll come back to this. What can we do once we click on a case study? It'll lead you to the case study itself. And I'll show you what we can do later with our next tool, which is here. Okay, so the last tool that our platform has is actually the most interesting, and it's kind of the easiest to do, and I think it's a nice incentive for you all to try out it once you make an account. So as we mentioned that when we're writing a case study or submitting a case study or looking at a case study, what we really want to find is the ease of replicability, as one of our previous presenters was talking about. If a case is more attractive, it's going to be more of an incentive to want to replicate it. If it's really clear in its breakdown, it's going to be better to replicate it as well. So we created another little tool with this was actually created with the School of Urban Sciences at the University of Seoul and CityNet. So this is kind of another replication tool, sort of a pre-assessment tool or a probability tool. So most of you are probably city officials or other urban stakeholders, either academics or working at an NGO. And what you really want to do is you want to take something from one city and do it in your city too. You want to also learn how to identify what the challenges are in your city. One of the things that prevents replication is that maybe you don't even know what the challenges are in your city, so you're kind of afraid to take something from another city. It's really important to know what those challenges are going to be, what those obstacles are going to be before you go ahead and try to replicate. So this thing here has some examples of implementation challenges. If the projects are too complex or unclear, so as you saw in our database, we try to keep the complexity to a minimum. If you have stakeholders that are not engaged, it's going to be really hard to replicate. If you don't have the right types of resources, or not just a lack of resources, but not the right types, then it's going to be really hard to take one best practice and localize.
Yeah.
And another important part is your project environment. Is it a good project environment or not? One example I can use is if you want to take some bike lanes initiative from one city and bring it to your city, but the city where the project was initiated had was very flat, but your city has very hilly or mountainous. You need to make sure the project environment is right. Not every city is good for biking and cycling, unfortunately. So this is the way that the toolkit is broken down. And very simply, you can only think about five main parts. So the first part is the nature of the project itself. Is the project relevant to your city that you want to localize? Is it clear? Are the steps very clear? And is it sustainable? If you take this practice and bring it to your city, will it be able to be sustained for multiple years, or is it environmentally sustainable? That kind of thing is always important in our field. In terms of stakeholders, there's three main parts. There's the project officers, which is kind of like you, people who are actually doing the work to replicate it. There's your political leadership or your departmental leadership. Do they have a strong will to implement the project, that kind of thing? And then you have to consider the affected groups of people in your city. Some people, what's the ratio going to be between people who are positively affected and people who are negatively affected by a project? can you make sure that the amount of people who are positively affected outweigh those who are negative, or that you can help out the negatively affected people with some strategy. The resources that you're going to need are broken down into 4, which are human resources, financial resources, very important, technological resources, and also information. As we're talking today a lot about smart projects, you need to have good data to be able to replicate a project that involves data or smart approaches. Sometimes institutional framework needs to be considered if you need to pass new legislation to replicate the project. And the last one, like I mentioned, is the project environment. Do you have the right infrastructure, social environment, and political environment to undertake this replication? I think I'll skip this part. And then I'll go into, this is what the toolkit looks like. You can see here the 5 main dimensions at the top. This text is actually quite short. So all you really need to do is look at the topic at hand, and then use the answer if it's very likely or very unlikely, and take a 4-point scale, that this program will be successful in your city. This is an example of the results page. Once you've completed the toolkit fully, you will get a percentage. And what does the percentage mean? The percentage means the probability of successful localization or replication of this project in your city. On this slide, the example case is sustainable solid waste management in Cambodia. So you can pretend that I'm in a city in Indonesia, and I have a 76% that this case is going to be localizable to my city. And you can get it broken down by section. So you can see that in terms of my city, the nature of the project is 92% applicable, but I have some weaknesses in the project environment, specifically the political environment and the infrastructure. Maybe I don't have good infrastructure when it comes to waste collection or separation at source, or even a good understanding of what waste is and how it can be categorized, what can be recycled, that kind of thing. It's really nice to get this readout, because basically, if you are working in a kind of at the working level in your city, and you're interested in a case that you want to replicate, and you want to show your boss or your division head or a political leader or something like this, you can do the replication toolkit, and you can get this nice little printout, and you can show them that according to our data, our city has a 76% of successfully localizing this case in our city. Why don't we try to do something like this? So the replication toolkit, what's really good for is to start this kind of process of discussion, start the replication process. We consider any score that is 60% or higher is actually a really good score for a really good probability that the case will be replicated from one city to another. Obviously, if it's a little lower than 60, you want to look at the areas that you have some weaknesses, and you're going to need to change the nature of the project a little bit to fit your city based on the weaknesses that you have. So, like I said, this is really good for starting the discussion about how we're going to take this one case and replicate it in my city. And where CityNet can come in for you too is that if you want to be connected with the city officials that implemented this case, we can set up that meeting for you so that you can learn a lot more about this case to actually replicate it successfully. So that's the end of this presentation. According to my blog, I have a little bit more time, so I can show you just what it looks like here on the platform. So we're back here at this this regenerating parks and playgrounds case from Dhaka North. And similar case study, the layout is all the same with the SDGs, with the background. You can see this is what the park looked like before. And then the actions and implementation. this case took a really interesting approach where they got members of the entire community together. They had a bunch of bilateral meetings between the government and, let's say, the elderly, the youth, the teenagers, the disabled people, and they asked them what their needs were and what kind of dream park would they like to build. So this is called placemaking, a sort of a bottom-up approach. And it is really, really collaborative, which is kind of what we're going for in this workshop. Highly collaborative approach. You can see these are the different groups that they met with, women, girls, teenagers, disabled, civic organizations, business community. And then what they did, they kind of came up with what they wanted for the park regeneration. And they even drew little maps about where they wanted specific features. Obviously, like there's a water feature in the middle that cannot be changed, but they each group has a different map. And the outcomes are, here's the final part. It's a big upgrade from before, and you know that a lot of different people were involved in the decision-making process. So it's much more than a park. It's kind of a smart park because so many minds were involved and collaborative people. Collaboration was involved to build this park. But what I really want to show you is that at the top of every case study, we actually have the toolkit built in here. This is the score of the average probability of replication of this case to other cities. If I click this, I can take the test. So this page briefly explains the toolkit that I just went over. And if you click here, you'll actually start the test. You can see that on my account, I've done this one already. So you can see in the nature of the project, I think that the project of this park is really relevant to my city. I've said very likely. And I think that the steps, the clarity has been really good. And sustainability is a very sustainable initiative. And I click save and proceed. And then I do the same thing for each of the 5 main categories. Stakeholders, it's all been done. The resources, all been done here. I have really good resources. Institutional framework and the project environment. Once I've done the entire test, I get to my results page. Kind of like I showed you before. My result is an 89% probability of successful localization in my city. So that's really good. The average result, we've had 9 people take this test, is a 76%. So that's actually a pretty high number because this localization toolkit was actually just implemented on the site quite recently. So we can say with pretty good confidence that this case is pretty good for replicating between cities because it's at a 76% based on our metrics here. And I can go over this and get the detailed readout of where I'm strong and where I'm weak. So down here as well, strengths and weaknesses are displayed. So with that, that's kind of going to go over the entire basic introduction of our platform. I want to reiterate to you that if you're a CityNet member, this platform is here for you. It's free. We really want you to upload case studies so that we can do more of these exercises. And maybe the last thing I'll mention is that maybe you got an email over the weekend as a participant for the online course. The workshops that we're doing for these next 3 days, we're actually going to be recording everything. We're going to be breaking it up and putting it online as a course. So the location is also connected to the Urban SDG Knowledge Platform, as Paulie mentioned. And if you go here, if you use your login that you created and go to the course name, Training on Smart Governance and Climate Change, just waiting for it to load. I'm already enrolled, so I could go to the course. And you can start seeing what the course looks like. Right now, there's nothing has been uploaded yet because we're still in progress with the course. But once the course is completed, we will upload everything here in our different sections. Right now, we're doing this part, topic 2. You can see this is our presentation. And we can upload PDFs. We can upload any other reading materials here for you to read more. And there is a discussion section where if we want to, we can have discussion, but I think also as Pakivo mentioned, it might be easier for our purposes just to have discussion live and then also in a WhatsApp group. But that's going to be the end of my discussion. If you have more questions about any of these things, you can always email me. I'll share my email in the chat. But we've been going for almost 1 hour, so I think that's going to be it for CityNet.
Okay, thank you, Paulie and Chris, for your presentation. So basically, SDGs become our mainstream for our not just city but everything in our world, and we have to understand how SDG can be help us to develop our urban environmental. And then sometimes when we use the SDG, we don't understand how to measure our performance. In this, CityNet already provide more simple way to measure your performance. And then you also create a toolkit for localized. And for other point, you also create a toolkit for to adapting how other city programs to your city. So rather than we just confuse, we see that other city able to create something, and then can we just replicate it, how we do it, and then you can measure first, and then you can based on your own resources, you can see the probability of success for replicating the idea from other cities. It's very good toolkit for everyone here, not just for the local government official, but also for the universities, academics, or NGO researchers to measure how the cities where they live to able to perform or able to replicate the others smart practices. We have a little bit time, about 15 minutes. So if anyone have a question, you may raise your hand in the Zoom, or you can type your question in the chat box. First, we have question here from Miss Siti Nurnara from Institute Technology of 10 November in Surabaya. Hello, Mbak Siti. Siti is my dear colleague from Bandung. We studied together in the ITB, and then again, Mr. Nurwan asking a question for Paulie and Chris. So, Ms. Siti, you may go first, and then followed by Mr. Nurwan, please.
Yeah, thank you, Pak Bayu, and thank you for the opportunity. Can you hear my voice clearly?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Pak Paulie, and also Pak Chris for the very important presentation. I would like to know more about the usability of the platform in your website. Do we allow to use this platform or toolkits in our research? And actually, how is the result? How is the result will be presented from using your platform? That's my questions. Another question is actually, who is the most appropriate stakeholder to do the self-assessment? Is it the government of the city, or is it us as academics, for example? Or do you think that everyone can take part and answering the self-assessment questions, and then how you combine then the result to conclude the level of, for example, the level of climate change initiative, or the level of SDGs and so on and so forth, as you mentioned in your example. Thank you very much. That's my question.
Thank you very much for the questions. I think that the first question you had was about accessibility for the platform. And really anyone can use it. It's a free platform, free service. All you need to do is at the top right of the website, you need to make an account. You hit the join button. And then once you've made an account, you can actually save your answers to the SDG Navigator and the replication toolkit. So we recommend you do that. You can use it without making an account. but it's going to be difficult to save your answers. The website is also designed to work in slower internet connections. So in those areas where internet isn't so good, it should work fine for really anyone in our entire network. That was a goal when we started it. The second question you had, it was about the stakeholders for the replication toolkit, right?
This is the.
Basically, the toolkit was designed for multiple stakeholders to take it with the same result. So typically, like traditionally, the city administrators or city officials would be the ones who would be using this, getting the most use out of this tool. But you know, in our experience, like our associate members who work in academia or think tanks or urban planning institutions, they actually might be the ones who get the most use out of it, because they are sort of the ones who are pushing governments to actually be more sustainable, to replicate practices. So we think that's good. And we also think that citizens and students, also like students who are studying urban planning or architecture or sustainability, environmental science, as long as you have the data, as long as you know your city well enough, you can do the SDG Navigator and you can do the localization toolkit, and it should be useful for you. You can do it for a school report, you can do it for a presentation, that kind of thing. Really, any stakeholder at any level should be able to use it. So we think that especially the localization toolkit, that one is really good for this today's topic of collaborative smart governance.
Okay, thank you, Pak Chris, for your response. Just to clarify, do we need a copyright permissions if we want to have to use your platform, for example, in our study?
Do you need some prerequisites or something?
Yeah, maybe. I'm not sure because I need to check more the website, yeah. But how we can make use of the platform, and then if we end up like writing a paper or research, something like that, I'm just wondering if we need to provide like something like copyright permission.
Oh, copyright. I see. If you're sharing a case study, yeah. If you're sharing a case study, there's no copyright. There's no copyright clause involved there. So I think if you're going to share a case study, you should share with the understanding that you're sharing it to a free open database, right? So that should be something that you understand from the beginning.
Oh, I see. Okay, thank you. I think I need to see more. Yeah,
Okay.
into the website.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ibu Siti and Paulie and Chris. So basically, it's very free application. You can use it for your own purposes, especially to understand how the city of where you are living able to support you. Next, we go to Mr. Norman. Please, Mr. Norman, you may
Thanks,
ask the
Bayu.
question.
Thanks, Bayu. Yeah, thanks also to Paulie and Chris. It's a nice and innovative, I think, platform. I don't know why I just know nowadays. I think this will be useful, not only for the local government, local municipality, also for students. Yes, my quick question. I think Bayu and Bu Siti already mentioned, and you also mentioned everyone can access this platform. So, but I'm concerned on the contents of the best practice. Who will be the responsibility to have this content? Because we need to validate, we need to verify the contents. So all can make a content of the best practice or the case in their cities, or you have you need someone to validate or to verify this case. And one more thing, when I check in the website, and then I search in Bandung city, it's only 2 cases. I don't know why, because if you know, Indonesia, in Bandung, there are a lot of Department of Urban and General Planning, and also related to cities, should be at least more than 2. But when I check, it's only 2. I don't know. And it's not update also. The last one is 2021, and the last one 2019. So can you respond to this question? Thanks. Back to Bayu.
Yes, thank you. To answer your first question about submitting a case, to submit a case, you either use the online form to submit a case, or you can submit a Word file, and then the Secretariat will review it and upload it. Anytime you want to submit a case, it actually needs to be reviewed first. So it's not just instant upload. It needs to be pending review and then uploaded. So in some cases, like if it's a CityNet member, a trusted CityNet member, we can work with them and make sure to verify the contents before uploading. If it's outside of our network, we may have to contact to just make sure the details are correct before uploading. So there is a review system in place done by CityNet Secretariat. The second question about Bandung, yes. So this is one of our challenges with CityNet is convincing our members to continuously upload new cases, new content for the platform. And as Bandung is a CityNet member, and they should be aware of the platform, and we hope to get more submissions. You know, if you also are interested in submitting a case, or anyone from Bandung City is here today, we really welcome the opportunity. We understand that Indonesia is a very big country with very big cities that have some expertise in these areas. As we do more of our workshops in different cities around the region, we always promote the network, the platform, and try to convince our members to keep uploading new fresh cases.
Do you mean you have a regular reminding to the members, or waiting
Yes.
for the uploading from someone?
Yes, so for example, in our monthly newsletter, always showcases some new cases from the platform as a way to get people involved in the website. We've also done an awards program this year, where we're sort of challenging our members to submit new cases to be recognized with awards. We're always trying to think of new ways to get people to upload cases, because that really is the challenge with these types of platforms. It really needs to come from our members. It is a challenge for sure. And we're doing our best to get more people to submit cases.